Hey guys, what's going on? Tommy Oliver here, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about the call I had today with Devin, an employee who works at YouTube and works for the YouTube Creator Academy and does calls with people for creator optimization for channels. I got an email from Devin a few weeks ago, and I initially shrugged it off because I thought it was just another company talking to me about joining an MCN, but it was actually someone who worked directly at Google. I figured I was going to use this opportunity to ask someone, a real live human who works at YouTube, about fair use on YouTube and the Content ID system, because everyone has a lot of questions about it, least of all myself, and I wanted to get some clarification on what was up with this system and how YouTube themselves feels about it and how we should be using the tools that they've given us and why some of them maybe fall short of what we would personally like as creators. So that was the point of me kind of talking with Devin today, and the call was interesting, enlightening, but not as informative as I probably would have liked, simply because, a lot of the questions I asked were, big topics that probably people outside of Google's shareholders and like top brass probably wouldn't be able to answer. But I figured I'd just throw them out there and see what the Google side of this equation is like, because we've heard tons of things from creators and viewers, but we've heard nothing from this side really, at least nothing that's come to my attention. So I figured, well, let's give this a shot. Like, why not? So that's what I just did for the last half an hour. And the first question that I asked was, what is YouTube's stance on video reviews? Because obviously we run into tons of problems with Content ID in terms of trying to get our content released under fair use clauses when we take clips and modify it for transformative works and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of ran that whole spiel by her and just asked for, how do you guys interpret it? And the whole conversation went as something that was very sympathetic. And it didn't seem just like forced sympathy, but also just as kind of baffled as I am. There were a lot of questions that she sympathized with me on and admitted that it was as weird to her as it was to me. But this question in particular, what is YouTube's stance on video reviews? They seem to be okay with it, and they don't mind the fact that you're using modified content as transformative use. In terms of YouTube, like, that's okay. It's not like they want every video review ever to be just you talking into a camera. The problem for YouTube as a company is that they're a global company, and copyright law is different from region to region. So when you're dealing with worldwide content, to draw a certain fine line becomes very difficult. YouTube as a whole, I guess, is very cautious about how they approach these topics, and they try to do their best to leave it up to the content owners and the creators on the site to kind of come to an agreement amongst themselves. And that's where the Content ID system and the appeals process comes from. So my next question naturally was, is the YouTube appeals system and dispute system designed for creators to argue in the case of fair use? Should we be doing that? Because it was only recently that there was even an option added to the appeals system and the dispute system to cite fair use as a reason to reinstate your content for monetization. And Devin said, yes, that's the reason it was there. Don't fear it, because I know they use a lot of really scary language. Like, even on the first dispute, it's like, if you screw up, your account will be terminated. She said that they come on strong to make sure that people who are just uploading things kind of get the idea that, like, it's a big deal to do this and don't follow through. But when I asked, you very much said that for what you're doing reviews and doing things that are fair use, the system's there to benefit you and to not be afraid to use it. So in terms of using the appeal system to argue fair use, that is something that you're allowed to do with it. That's what it's there for, and to not be afraid to fight for your content if you believe it's under fair use, which makes sense, what I was expecting to hear, but good to hear it straight from the source, that what I'm doing isn't bad in the eyes of YouTube. It's just the system still has some imperfections, a lot of imperfections that need to be addressed, but the core thing that I'm doing, which is making video reviews that use clips under fair use, isn't something that YouTube is automatically shooting down because of, corporate interest. The tools are there just as much for us as it is for the companies. So that's good to know. The next question I had was something that I encountered recently, but I've heard about before, and a lot of videos that talk about Content ID and monetization issues on YouTube refer to this, and that's when your video isn't flagged by Content ID, but you get a message and sometimes an accompanying email saying that your video has been flagged for review, and that someone says that you need to provide more evidence that you have the rights to do this. This happened to my last two videos, which right out of the gate, before I even did anything anything with them. And because of that, I haven't been able to monetize my last 2 videos. And so I was like, so what's up with this? Because if you look at the options on this claim, there's no way to argue your case in terms of fair use. The option isn't even there. You can't argue that point. So my question was, if you're okay with fair use, why can't I make an argument here for fair use? And unfortunately, I didn't really get a straight answer in this regard as to why there isn't. What I did find out is that Content ID and this system are completely separate. They have nothing to do with each other. Content ID is a system that works for content holders, companies that own media. This review process is done by YouTube internally, so they're 2 different things. When you get a flag like this, it's not a company doing it, it's YouTube doing it. Whether it's done by an automation or there are people manually scanning through it, Devin wasn't very clear. It didn't sound to me like she was the one who would have the answer to this, so I didn't push it too far. But this is a completely separate thing that's done by YouTube internally and has nothing to do with companies. So if you get hit by this, it's a problem directly with YouTube, not with any companies. Just like, the stance on video reviews in general, they err on the side of caution, which is usually why when you get hit by this, there's no way to get out of it. Again, because of global standards on copyright law and the fact that technically fair use can only be determined in a court of law, and since YouTube isn't a court of law and you haven't gone to court and you haven't hired an attorney, most of the time they're going to unfortunately shoot you down. So it's an incredibly touch and go base. There's no hard line established by YouTube. I asked Devin, how do you fight this? And she said, unfortunately, there doesn't really seem to be a way to do so. However, I gave her the link to the video and she said you try and dig and find out exactly why it was flagged, why it was denied monetization, and get back to me. So perhaps if any of you creators out there have been getting messages like this, I would suggest taking them up, because now you have a connection to someone at YouTube, a person you can email and talk to. So this is something I'm personally glad that I jumped on, because now I have it in, so to speak. Also, Devin said that she's going to try and look at my content or my copyright strike, since the video isn't even on my account anymore. She also gave me the email address of Sony. Sony's the one who flagged my video and gave me the strike, said keep sending them emails and they should be checking those email accounts and hopefully they'll get back to you if you keep bothering them enough. So I'm just going to start spamming Sony 2 or 3 emails a day until they finally decide to pay attention to me. That's really all I got from out of that conversation. The big thing that I took away from it is that the dispute system is totally fine to use to argue for fair use as long as you can. You can argue fair use with companies. Apparently, you're not really able to argue fair use from YouTube's internal review service because there's no option for it. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem like it's going to be added anytime soon. So those claims are different because it's from YouTube internally. And at the end of the day, use the Content ID dispute, especially if you're doing fair use, because it's fine. You're not going to get in trouble. If you get shut down the first time, all it's going to happen is the claim's going to go back. Nothing bad happens to your channel. It's only if you get shut down during the appeal, because first you dispute doesn't work, nothing happens. If you lose the appeal, then you get the strike, but you can still fight then as well. So basically, fight for your content is what I'm saying, that you're within every right to do so. Straight from YouTube themselves, you can do it. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for watching. I hope if some of you guys are coming on the fence about using the dispute system, that you have a bit more confidence in doing it now. Devin and I am going to remain in contact via email, and we're going to do a follow-up call in a couple weeks. So if anything else comes to light during that time, I will be sure to annotate this video to either a video or a post if I just write it out with text to update everyone. Till then, catch y'all next video.